Ah, shit. Get your tea and your popcorn because this is gonna be a good one. You guys really wanted me to do a psychoanalysis of the film Sinners. This will be my first film analysis, so I'm really excited. I'm curious to see how people are going to respond to this video. I have not watched any other content creators film analysis on this movie. And I purposely do that because I want to make sure that my views are not being skewed by anyone else's. Not to mention the fact that I am not a huge movie person. I don't keep up with a lot of movies. I don't keep up with a lot of actors. Funny story, actually. This is the first movie that I've ever seen with that actor Michael B. Jordan in it. I know that he's a popular actor in the black community. I know that he's the one where a lot of unambiguous black women were getting jealous because Lori Harvey was dating him or whatever. So anyway, I'm just going to kind of discuss what the movie made me think about. And I'm considering doing some sort of film analysis series on this channel. I think I would do it in the members page, though. I don't think I'd want to do it publicly because, that's just too good of information to be sharing just out here on the internet like that. But I will say, disclaimer, I do not know who the guy is who's in charge of it. I hear his name is Ryan Coogler or something like that. I didn't really research the background and the producers and directors. I have no idea if this movie is based on a book or not. I'm just going to discuss what it made me think about. Okay, so let's start off with this unambiguous black woman. I don't remember her name in the movie, but she's the one who's tall and big, and she wears her natural 4C shrunken hair. By the way, another thing I noticed, isn't it interesting how decades ago, a lot of unambiguous black women wore their natural hair, but today, a lot of black women would not be caught dead with their hair in those hairstyles that were shown in that movie. So I wonder what they think of this representation. They were begging for Hollywood to represent them. They finally got some representation. Here she is right here. If this is not a representation of unambiguous black women, I don't know what is. Because walking down the street, the majority of unambiguous women look like this woman right here. Weight and everything. From the weight to the hair, skin tone. I mean, this is a very accurate representation. But we all know that a lot of them hate to see themselves in their natural phenotype shown on the silver screen. But then when they're not shown on a movie screen, then they complain that everyone's a colorist. But this movie had majority dark-skinned black people in it. So I haven't watched any other film analysis, but I don't want to hear not one unambiguous black content creator complaining about lack of representation. In fact, they should be celebrating the fact that there was a movie with majority dark-skinned people in it. And I have seen some thumbnails of some videos where in the thumbnail, they're showing the white passing girl. Like they're only showing her in the thumbnail. I have seen some stuff where people are talking about her only. And it's like, out of all of the dark-skinned, black, unambiguous people in the movie, you decide to analyze the one person that has the closest proximity to whiteness. Isn't that interesting? And also, I wouldn't be surprised if there were content creators saying that this woman was kind of outshining the other ones. But anyway, okay, sorry. Let me get back to this unambiguous black woman. By the way, this is probably going to be a long one because I don't have any notes. So I'm just going to be talking off the cuff. But this woman she's one of those black women that does the witchcraft. So she does root work and she has a little spiritual shop. And this just made me think of a lot of black women who utilize religion and spirituality to cope with their own pain. Have you guys noticed that? Whenever black women are dealing with a lot of rejection, a lot of social isolation, kind of like the woman in the movie, she was literally living in a shack in the middle of the woods. So she was extremely isolated. Her baby's grave was right outside of her house. So it's like, okay, she got abandoned. She got left by Michael B. Jordan's character because I guess they were in some sort of relationship. And then, they had a baby. The baby died. He left her stranded and abandoned there for 7 years. She thought he was never coming back. And then he shows back up. So this man, the man that she was with, he was leaving so he could kind of escape Jim Crow. He was trying to escape kind of the isms, the racism, colorism, texturism, featureism that they were dealing with in the Deep South at that time. So I found it interesting how instead of this black man who came upon this money, instead of him protecting and providing for his black woman, he decides to abandon her and go create a better life for himself. And then if you compare how he treated her versus how the other guy treated the biracial girl, you actually heard them have a conversation. And that man, he said that he taught her how to fight. So he taught her a lot of survival skills. He taught her how to fight. He made sure that she had a white husband. He made sure that she could live a good life as a white woman, instead of living, as a quote unquote black woman back at that time. So I thought that was interesting, just seeing the contrast. And once again, this is just another thing, it's kind of another notch on our belt as Exoticals, obviously. This is just another subliminal message that makes MLS women the face of social climbing. So even if our relationships end, even if the guy's trash or we dump him or it doesn't work out, we always get something out of it. Because one thing I noticed when I compared the unambiguous woman, when I compared that character to the biracial woman, is that the biracial woman, she always had something in her hand. She always had some form of protection or provision. Even when they were about to go out, like when she was going to go out and talk to the white people after they wouldn't be let into the juke joint, the man, Michael B. Jordan's character, he gave her a gun. So that's still a form of protection. But if you compare the mixed woman's lifestyle to the unambiguous black woman's lifestyle, there was a stark difference. And I think that we see that pattern still today. But part of the reason why people stereotype us Exoticals as being privileged is because not only are we historically privileged, but I do think that the media also contributes to kind of highlighting how privileged we are, even if they're not trying to do that. So I'm not saying that Ryan Coogler or whoever created the movie is colorist, but I did find that interesting. So back to this unambiguous woman. Let me look up her name really quick. Okay, so I believe her name is Annie. And when I looked it up, they're saying that she's actually his wife. Okay, so that's way worse. That makes everything even more dusty. So this woman, she actually has the ring. This is viewed as a prize to a lot of unambiguous black women. They view it as a prize to have a wedding ring, and that's a form of status, right? So this unambiguous black woman, she has the ring. She has the status, even though in the movie, I don't remember seeing her wearing a ring. But apparently she was his wife, or maybe his ex or something. But when I just looked it up just now, it says that that's his wife. So she was isolated, living in a shack, spending fake money or having fake money. And she was so down bad to the point where she felt like her only source of social power was these mojo bags and doing all these rituals and doing all this root work. And even the man, he said to her, like, why didn't this work on our child? So he was pointing out the fact that your spirituality doesn't actually work when it counts. And you know what? That's actually a good point, because I've noticed in the black community, a lot of people, they do rely on their different spiritualities or religions to give them a sense of power. But have you ever noticed that it never actually works out how they think it will? So they will try to curse you. They'll try to put some spells and some bad juju on you, thinking they're the shit, thinking that it's going to turn the tables. And then if you look at that woman, the woman actually died in the end. She became a vampire. Well, she got killed. He actually killed her in the end. Oh, by the way, this is going to have spoilers, so my bad. But it's like, yeah, if you were so powerful and you're so knowledgeable about vampires, you're telling me you have all this spiritual knowledge, but you don't know how to have a functioning relationship, and you don't understand the basics of financial stability. So it kind of highlighted the gap that a lot of religious black people have, kind of like the delusion that a lot of religious black people have, where it's like they'll be so spiritual yet so dumb with money. I remember we saw this recently, actually. I think it was Marvin Sapp who essentially was like kind of telling people that they can't even leave the building until they give him money. And then he was doing it under the guise of spirituality. So I just feel like culturally, that mindset is still prevalent in the unambiguous black community. Prioritizing your spirituality over common sense. I mean, I feel like if you're going to be spiritual, if I'm going to be spiritual or religious, at least I want that shit to help me. I at least want it to help me become rich, help me to not have a freaking toxic relationship, for God's sakes. Help me to not be socially and emotionally isolated, because that's exactly what I think of when I think of that woman. I think of her as being socially and emotionally isolated. And then when I first saw them interact in the movie, I actually thought they were brother and sister, because there was no romance at all. There was no, they didn't even smile when they first saw each other. I didn't know that they were in a romantic relationship until they started fucking in the middle of the movie. But it's like, I think that was another difference as well between Annie's character versus Haley Steinfeld's character. So let's take a look at Haley Steinfeld. When she first came across Michael B. Jordan in the train station, she immediately walked up to him and held him accountable for his past actions. She didn't care what people thought of her, so she was bold. So she approached him with more boldness. I've noticed that the biracial woman in the movie, she's more of a sexual dominatrix. She is the sexually dominant one, whereas if you compare her to Annie's character, the black man, is sexually dominant over her. So, and you could even tell based on the sexual positions as well, because if you looked at Haley Steinfeld and Michael B. Jordan, she's on top of him, which in my mind, I was thinking it could be symbolic. I don't know. It just made me think of that. Like symbolically, she is the one who is seducing him. You know, he's drawn into her. She is magnetizing him. Whereas with the unambiguous black woman and Michael B. Jordan, it's the exact opposite dynamic. She's drawn to him. He's the one that's dominating over her. She's the one that's left out in the shack alone for 7 years. And then she easily gives him sexual access to her. She never called him out for not loving her properly. In fact, all she did was she was standoffish. She threatened to stab him. So she started off by actually threatening violence within about 30 seconds. So that made me think of the typical toxic black relationship dynamics where you've got violence, you got the woman threatening to harm the man or whatever, but then it's like, it's okay. You know, domestic violence is a norm. So threatening to end somebody, threatening to stab somebody, that's the norm. And I think a lot of people probably overlook that in the movie, but I just said I've seen the movie several times at this point. So that was something that stood out to me. I'm like, wait a minute, if you guys love each other and it's such a healthy relationship, why are you threatening to stab someone? Like in the case of Haley Steinfeld and Michael B. Jordan's character, they were broken up. She has a whole other husband. But in this woman's case, she was just sitting there in a shack, isolated, waiting and praying and hoping and, you know, lighting candles, lighting incense, hoping that this man will come back to her. So it's almost like she was deifying him in a way. It's almost as if she was viewing him as the reason that her spirituality works. Like, oh, you know, this means my spirituality works because you came back to me. In fact, she actually said something along those lines. She was like, you know, how do you know that you're not here? Because I was like praying for you every single day. So that's the difference between an unambiguous woman with an external locus of control versus a woman who has slightly more of an internal locus of control, like Haley Steinfeld's character. She's more dominant. She walks up to you in the train station. She'll call your ass out. Like she called him out immediately. She was talking loudly. She didn't care that anybody else heard what was going on. She was not ashamed of her behaviors with him. You know, she wasn't ashamed of the fact that she had slept with him or whatever because she was just talking about it openly in the train station to the point where she actually embarrassed him. So I've noticed that there's this dynamic of the mixed race woman doing a better job at holding this black man accountable versus the unambiguous black woman where she just lets him walk into her house. If I was married to a guy and I had a dead baby, and this man shows up after I've been living in poverty out in a shack selling mojo bags and getting paid in fake money, and then when the guy called out the fact that her money was fake, like the slave money or like a coupon basically, she was like, oh, well, you know, I don't need it anywhere else. I'm not going anywhere else. Okay, so that represents further isolation. So now, not only are you not going anywhere else, you're not traveling, but you actually can't go anywhere else because you literally don't even have access to leave. And your husband knew that when he was leaving. So he knew when he was about to leave for 7 years, he knew that he was about to go hit a lick in Chicago, which he did. But she was left there with none of that money, with none of the provision, living out in a shack. She can't even spend the money she has in any other community other than kind of the black community, basically. She can't even go anywhere else, and she said that. So look at the difference in lifestyle versus when you were introduced to Haley Steinfeld's character. She's at the train station, you know, so she's traveling. That represents travel. I know that she was traveling because she was like burying her mother, but still, I mean, it takes money. It costs money to have funerals. It costs money to be able to bury someone versus, I mean, look at the difference. The unambiguous woman burying the baby in her backyard, I mean, she probably didn't have any money to like maybe do a funeral or whatever versus Haley where she's able to travel. She's able to like have a whole repass, like that's what they talked about later in the movie. So I just noticed that there was definitely a stark difference in the social status of the two women. And I do not think that it only has to do with race. I think that maybe back then it did, but I think now in 2025, we actually still see very similar dynamics. MLS women are the standard of living. We are the standard of social climbing. Look at how much unambiguous women worship women like Meghan Markle. Look at how people worship biracial women or multi-generationally mixed women just in the industry or in general. People stereotype us as being gold diggers and social climbers, and in some cases we are. But I think in the movie, Haley, I don't think that she was trying to do that. But going back to their dynamic, so Annie, she threatens to stab the guy. She says that his money is cursed. And she says, like, your money's got blood on it. Okay, so my thing for Annie is like, okay, Annie, if you're so smart and you're so spiritual and you know that his money is cursed and it has blood on it, why the fuck would you stay married to him and want to be around him? And why the fuck would you welcome him into your home and then fuck him within 20 seconds? And by the way, another thing too was like, she was kind of being standoffish towards him, and he only came back to her house because he needed her to cook food for him. So he only came back because he wanted something. He didn't come back because, oh my God, I came here so I could provide for you and I'm going to buy you a new house. No, he didn't say any of that. After being gone for 7 years while she is grieving their dead baby by herself, isolated in a shack, anything could have happened to her. This is the Jim Crow South. Anything could have happened. So instead of him taking her along with him to Chicago and, making the best for their lives and, no, he decides to just go on his own and do whatever he's got to do. By the way, later in the movie, one of them mentioned selling ass, by the way. I don't know if anybody caught that, but I can't remember which twin it was, but one of them mentioned being a prostitute up in Chicago, like being a male prostitute. So it's like, okay, he went to Chicago doing God knows what, and he left you behind. You could have had anything bad happen to you in the Jim Crow South. So you were left with nothing other than this spirituality. So people will use that as a way to give them hope. They use it as a coping mechanism for depression. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but she decides to let him back in. He admits that he came back because he needed her to cook some catfish for the juke joint. Like he needed her to do some cooking, basically. So she's only being viewed and valued for her labor and what she can give him. And then throughout the movie, she never stops and thinks, wait a minute, what can this man give me? Because clearly he seems to be bringing stress. Like she immediately sounded stressed out as soon as he walked in. But I also noticed that the guy, Michael B. Jordan's character, he was like, are you going to make me say it? Are you going to make me say, I love you and I miss you? So that's actually not a genuine way of saying you love and miss someone, because he admitted that she made him say it. He also said, seconds before that, he said, it hurts me to come back here. Okay, so that means he doesn't want to be there. So sis, why are you fucking him after he just admitted that it hurts him to have to come back there? He views you as a representation of his failure. And I think that that's very true when it comes to the dynamic between black men and what they perceive as leveled down black women. They feel like that black woman is a representation of his failure. She's a representation of his past. She's a representation of, him kind of regressing because he had this big boss life in Chicago working for Al Capone. And then, it didn't work out. So now here he is back to square one. So he's basically admitting that she's the come up woman. He's admitting that she's the come up woman because he's saying it hurts him to go back there and, are you going to make me say it? I love you and I miss you. He's only saying that because he wants you to cook catfish for the juke joint for free so he can make money and have more financial status. So he's utilizing her as a stepping stone. But with her being so spiritual, she claims to be so spiritual and so intuitive, but she couldn't pick up on the fact that she was being completely used and manipulated. So anyway, she decides to climb on top of him and ride his D and then just let him go in her. But again, I noticed even with the sexual positions they showed, it was more so like they weren't face to face. Okay, so I want to call that out because when it comes to sexual intimacy, a lot of people associate being face to face with being more intimate, right? Because you're looking at the person like while they're in you, or maybe you're kind of kissing the person, or you're staring into their eyes. So people view that as being a little bit more intimate. But I did notice the fact that he instantly turns her around so he can like get her from behind basically. So it's, I don't know, I just felt like that is not the most intimate position, and it kind of represented the dynamic of their relationship where it wasn't a truly intimate relationship. Because even if you looked at Haley Steinfeld and the other guy, she was like on top of him and they were face to face. Like they were looking into each other's eyes and he was like, "Oh, you're drooling." And she's like, "Oh, do you want some?" So this guy's willing to slurp up her drool. Whereas if you look at the sexual dynamic between Annie and Michael B. Jordan's character, it's not the same. So even her sexual power, her seduction power, is not on the level of a character like Haley Steinfeld's. And I don't think that it's simply based on colorism, because a lot of people they're saying that, well, from what I've seen, based on thumbnails or based on what you guys have told me in the Discord, people are trying to relate that to like, oh, she only got what she has because of colorism. But no, there was nothing in the movie where it implied that Michael B. Jordan was a colorist. There was nothing in the movie that showed, oh, I worship light-skinned women, or, I like her because she's light-skinned. So you can't use the colorism argument because there was no colorism present in the movie. So he never said anything that was worshiping light skin and then like denigrating dark skin. So you can't make that argument that, oh, he was only with her because she's light, or, that's the only reason that he was like slurping up her drool and everything. No, it sounds like he was more into Haley. Michael B. Jordan's character was more into Haley than the other guy was to Annie. And it's very obvious. Annie has a lack of boundaries. She just lets men who mistreated her and men who she said have cursed money. She said he had cursed money. She threatened to stab him, but then 20 seconds later, she's fucking him. Like, I didn't see that dynamic between Haley and Michael B. Jordan's character. I didn't see the same dynamic. So I've noticed that it made me think about how some unambiguous Black women, they try to use violence as a way to assert power and boundaries. And obviously that's a toxic trait within the Black culture. We know that obviously violence is not the answer, but that's what it made me think of. Like, okay, so the only way you get attention is by threatening violence or saying how he's cursed, basically talking shit or whatever. But then 20 seconds later, you still want to fuck. So it made me think about how she was using her anger to mask the soft and tender feelings she had towards Michael B. Jordan's character. So she obviously loved him, or she was in love with him. She was praying for him every day or whatever. But instead of just expressing that, instead of just operating in her femininity, she was unable to do that for whatever reason. She was unable to do that. She didn't feel emotionally safe enough with him to be able to express that. In fact, she had to use passive-aggressive anger to try to manipulate him and strong arm him into saying, "I love you and I miss you." He knew damn well that if he didn't say that, she was not going to cook for him at the juke joint. So she was only being valued for what she can give him. And I feel like that dynamic still exists today with a lot of unambiguous Black women and the dating decisions they make. Now I want to get into Pearlene, who is Sammy's love interest in the movie. So she is a singer in the movie, and Sammy, that's the younger cousin who is also like a blues singer. So they meet in the train station. Well, he already knows who she is, and he's kind of like coming on to her, and then she says, "I'm married, by the way." And then he's like, "Happily?" And then she's like, "Oh, you better watch yourself. You're going to bite off more than you can chew." So she was in a dusty marriage. So if you look at just from a representation standpoint, you got one unambiguous dark-skinned Black woman who's in a dusty marriage. Then you got the other one who's also in a dusty marriage because she's out by herself. The husband is not with her at the train station, so she's kind of unprotected. I don't think they ever showed her husband throughout the entire film. And as soon as a Black man gives her interest, as soon as this random Black man in the train station gives her some interest, her whole, marriage goes out the window. She could have easily just said, "No, I'm not happily married," or I'm being abused or whatever. She could have just been honest with that Sammy guy. He potentially could have been a good guy towards her, but instead it's almost like she wanted to play coy and play hard to get as a way to show like some form of sass or like class or whatever. Like, "Oh, I'm not that easy." Okay, but you technically are, because later that night she goes to the juke joint without her husband again. So in her case, she is another unhappily married black woman, or she's another unhappy black woman in terms of her relationships. So she's out by herself at night searching for something more. She's searching for happiness. She is searching for male validation. She's searching for the love that she's not receiving at home with her husband. So Sammy, he had kind of flirted with her at the train station, saying that I hope to see you there, like at the juke joint. And then she goes to the juke joint. And after Sammy sings, after she finds out how good of a singer he is, you see her kind of looking him up and down. And then she's like basically lusting after him or whatever, like, oh, I'm definitely going to sleep with it. Oh, he's definitely going to clap these cheeks tonight after he just sang like that. So this actually reminds me of how easy it is to kind of entice a woman who has kind of lower standards. So she's not thinking about, wait a minute, this is a young boy. Like, how old is he? Like, what can we be in a real relationship? Are we going to get married? Like, are we going to stay in the Jim Crow South? What will my life look like with him? She's not thinking about her own future. So that's a pattern that I noticed between both Annie and Pearlene. Neither of these women gives a fuck about her own future. Haley, she actually gave a fuck about her future. She's more strategic. And we'll get into Haley after Pearlene. But in the case of Pearlene, she just goes to the juke joint. She sees him singing after they did, a little bit of flirting. Then after that, it cuts to the scene where they're in the room and he's basically like about to give her head or whatever. And she's like, oh, I need to go wash up first. Like basically I smell bad because I walked here. So it's like, wait a minute. So you also walked there? So you walked to a juke joint in the Jim Crow South by yourself at night? So a lot of people didn't catch that. That's actually a sign of extreme emotional neglect. I think that that reminds me of a pattern we still see today in Black culture. A lot of unambiguous Black women, even in their relationships, even in their own marriages, are extremely emotionally neglected. So she's a young, beautiful woman walking outside by herself at night. She's wearing a dress, looking all nice. The Klan is down there, so anything could have happened to her. But she was walking. She walked from a long distance. It sounded like. She walked there so much so to the point where her cooter was sweating, and so she needed to wash it up. Okay, but that's a sign of being unprotected. She didn't have a car. Like, nobody gave her a ride. Nobody gave a fuck enough about her to pick her up and give her a ride there. She didn't have access to her own car. So she's kind of this wandering woman. And it reminds me of the emotional state of a lot of unambiguous women with that external locus of control. So she feels neglected. So she's wandering through the darkness, literally wandering through the darkness of the Jim Crow South in hopes that she can maybe get access to somebody like Sammy, or maybe just for a night. Because in that movie, there was nothing to imply the fact that they were going to be together long term. It kind of came off as more of a one-night stand, casual hookup. In fact, Michael B. Jordan's character pulled a gun on that same woman later on that night because they thought that she could potentially be a vampire. But it's like, that reminds me of how a lot of women, they're wandering around searching for validation, like Pearlene. They're searching for validation. They're searching for male validation. And they want to feel like a star, even if it's only for one night. Because when it came to Pearlene, she heard him singing. She gave him the goods. And then after she gives it up to Sammy, then suddenly you see her become just this confident seductress. Now she's out singing. She got drunk. She's on the stage dancing. So she's embracing her sensuality. So basically, the black man, the man, Sammy, he held the keys to her feminine energy. So that points to yet another example of an external locus of control, because she wasn't embodying her sexiness, kind of like Haley's character. Haley, she very much embodies her sensuality. She embodies a sense of confidence. She doesn't give a fuck if she's being toxic. She'll walk up to you in the train station. She'll call your ass out. She will lead you up to the bedroom and have no problem like hitting on you or whatever if you're in a relationship with her. She's very bold when it comes to her seduction style and her flirting style. But in the case of Pearlene, she came off as this reserved woman. It's almost like she was trying to put on an act. It was a fake act. She was trying to put on a false persona of being this classy married trad wife, but in reality, she was over there, busting it wide open in the club. So does that sound familiar? That's a very common cultural phenomenon that we see with a lot of black women even today. They put on this facade of being so classy and demure. I'm very mindful and demure, but then as soon as they get sexual attention from whoever they want, then all of that goes out the window, all the boundaries go out the window, and it's almost as if that man kind of can turn you out, and then he's turning you into this feminine seductress. But again, that's still an external locus of control, because it shouldn't take a man getting between your legs for you to finally embrace your beauty and for you to finally embrace your body. Because I noticed that she sang after she had sex with Sammy. She didn't sing before. So it's almost as if her sexual encounter with Sammy helped her to find her own voice. So that's an external locus of control, though, because you're giving a man sexual power over you, emotional power, and then you're too shy to use your voice. You're too shy to take the stage. You're too shy to embody yourself at your most confident level unless a man validates it first. So that was a very interesting dynamic that I saw between those two characters. So she was as quiet as a mouse, but then as soon as this man validated her, now suddenly she has self-esteem. So she's 100% completely male-centered, extremely male-centered, and extreme pick-me. I'm just being honest. This is extreme pick-me behavior, because it's like she already had the beauty before. She already had the talent before. She already could sing. She already looked nice in her dress or whatever. She could have just danced the night away and kept her boundaries intact. But instead, it's almost as if she gave into the pressures of society at the time. So, she was married, unhappily married, obviously, even though she never said it. But it's like the fact that you went and slept with this guy that you just met at the train station the same day, clearly you were unhappy in your marriage and you were desperate for some satisfaction. Another thing I want to highlight is both Annie and Pearlene, the two unambiguous dark-skinned black women, they use sex as a form of escape, whereas Haley Steinfeld's character used sex for a purpose. She used sex so she could get him to become a vampire. So she used sex in a strategic way, whereas the other two women were only using sex as a way to cope with their own traumas. This video is probably going to get demonetized for saying sex so much, but yeah, that's something interesting I noticed. Like just comparing those two women to Haley Steinfeld's character, because I already know, us Exoticals, we already know that we are going to be the villain. So I haven't even watched any film analysis of this film, but I'm just going to assume that people are going to be demonizing Haley Steinfeld's character. But Haley, she got something out of it. When she had sex, she got something out of it, which was she was able to cross over her boyfriend to the other side so they could both become vampires together. And then at the very end of the movie, you see them actually still being together as vampires decades later. They're still together, still with each other. So Haley actually got what she wanted in the end, whereas the other characters ended up dead. So they all ended up dead, and they ended up not achieving their goals, basically. They never got what they wanted, including Sammy. It's not like he married Pearlene or anything like that. In fact, at the end of the movie, when Sammy was an old man, he was like, yeah, like that was the best night of my life. But in the case of Pearlene, she gave up the goods to a guy that she met at the train station. So she slept with a guy that she met in one day. First of all, were STDs not a thing back then? Like, I don't know why people would engage in this type of behavior, but okay. So she slept with the guy that she met, and she still wasn't protected in the end. She still died in the end. She turned into a vampire and got burned up or whatever. So it's like she was searching for kind of this escape. She was looking to escape. She was looking to finally feel confident. She finally wanted to feel sexy, and she did after Sammy gave her the validation. But then in the very end, Sammy couldn't protect her. Sammy was still alive, and she wasn't. So she never got what she wanted. And in the case of Annie's character, Annie made Michael B. Jordan's character promise to kill her so that she didn't become a vampire. So he ended up killing her. He ended up stabbing her. So it's like, okay, her life ended in trauma, but she got what she wanted though, which was death. A lot of people are not picking up on the fact that Annie, she had a suicide type of nature. Because she basically was like, I just want to cross over to the other side because I've got someone waiting for me, aka her dead baby was waiting for her on the other side. So she already had kind of this suicidal mindset of my life is meaningless because I don't have the life that I want here, and there's no way I could ever have it. So that's why she made her husband promise to like kill her, the bad husband, Michael B. Jordan. She made her dusty husband who abandoned her, she made him promise to kill her because that's the best way out. That's her escape. She wanted to escape life in general. And I feel like that points to one of the main mental illnesses that we see in the Black community, especially amongst a lot of Black women who have a ton of trauma like that, because she was probably one of the most traumatized people in the entire film. She's got the dead baby. She's living out in the shack, all isolated or whatever. The guy only comes back because he wants her to cook. So he needs her services. He doesn't actually want her personally. Clearly he doesn't, because his actions show that he doesn't. He didn't even make sure that she was like protected or provided for. They argued a lot about the baby. They argued about like the baby's death or whatever. He was denigrating her spiritual beliefs and putting them down. Like, oh, that's not real. Like that's bullshit basically. So that's not love. That is psychological abuse. By the way, let's get into the fact that Michael B. Jordan's characters were extreme sociopaths. I mean, they were sociopaths, but at least Haley's character, I feel like she was equally, she was very similar in her sociopathic behavior. So it's almost like they had kind of this Bonnie and Clyde dynamic or something, kind of like being two peas in a pod. And you really could see that at the end when they were able to scheme their way to both survive. So the winners in this movie were really Haley Steinfeld's character and then Michael B. Jordan's character. Both of them got what they wanted, which was experiencing no pain. That's what they said. They were like, oh, when you become a vampire, basically there's no pain. Okay, so they won. So this couple, this mixed woman and the Black man, they won in the end. They were the only two that were like strategic. They were the only two that got what they wanted. So let's get into Haley Steinfeld's character. So she was with this guy, Michael B. Jordan, and then like he lied to her. I guess he said that he was coming back when like he knew he wasn't. Basically, it sounded like their cultural differences caused them to like not be able to work out, because when they were arguing in the bar, he admitted, he was like, I got you a white husband and everything. Like basically I made sure you were taken care of before I left. And she said, I didn't want to be white. I wanted to be with you. So what that tells me is that Michael B. Jordan's character saw the fact that she had more potential to have social power than him in the Jim Crow South. And so he knew he was too dusty for her. He knew he was too dusty. So he was like, let me make sure that you're taken care of, that you got the white husband or whatever. You can live your life as a white girl here in the South because you can pass. And then I'm just going to go off and like disappear basically. So he eliminated himself from her dating pool. He eliminated himself because he knew that he could not measure up basically. That's how it sounded to me when they were arguing over that. And then I also found it interesting, the dynamic between him and her. So like she could be as mean as she wanted. She called him out. She like held him accountable for his actions basically. And he accepted it. He accepted the fact that like he was basically being a dusty and that he couldn't measure up. But then at the same time, they still knew how to work together. So they had some form of conflict resolution skills, even though it seemed like their relationship was toxic for the time that they were together. Because when she was going to go out, basically, he told her that the shop, the juke joint, was not going to have money. And she was like, well, why don't you let me talk to the white people, basically. She didn't say the white people, but she was like, why don't you let me talk to the people and like see what they really have and see if they have any money. So they still knew how to social climb together. So that made me think of this kind of the vibe that we see today between mixed race women and unambiguous Black men who social climb together. So some examples of this would be like NFL players, Black NFL players who marry these racially ambiguous women or these mixed race women, and then they social climb together. Both of them have something to gain out of the relationship. So whether it's toxic or healthy, whether they're in love or not, doesn't seem to matter to the two of them, or it doesn't seem to matter to anyone else because they are both getting what they wanted in the end, as we saw with Haley and Michael B. Jordan's character. Another thing I want to point out about Haley is she had no problem being around both white people or Black people. So she had a fluid identity. And I feel like this is what a lot of people get offended by when you're a mixed race, multicultural person, because a lot of mixed people, they pick a side. They will pick whatever side they look like the most usually. So if they look more black, they tend to only hang out with black people. If they look more white, maybe they only hang out with white people. But in Haley's case, she kind of had this mindset of not picking a side. She was going to have a fluid identity and go to whatever space either celebrates her to go where she celebrated, or she was going to make sure that she gets what she wants, regardless of who gives it to her, whether it's the black community or the white community. Because one thing I noticed was when Haley Steinfeld went to the white people that were already vampires, they were very welcoming or whatever. And then the guy was like, you're out here because you want fellowship and love, and you're looking for something that money can't buy, which is essentially belonging, like kind of belonging to one racial group or belonging to one like background. But I will say though, what a lot of people don't know is the white people did not know that Haley Steinfeld's character was mixed race, because they'd never said that. They asked when they went into the juke joint, they were like, wait a minute, if we can't get in, how did she get in? So they were seeing her as white. They didn't know that she was mixed race. That's why they asked that question. So I think a lot of people are thinking that like Haley Steinfeld was maybe, she was this outcasted mixed person who was just trying to fit in with the white people. No, they didn't know that she was mixed from what I saw in the movie. Because otherwise they would have been like, oh, okay, it's only for like black people or like black adjacent people. And also when Haley Steinfeld went out to talk to the white people and kind of ask them some questions like, where are you from? And why are you guys here? Basically, they gave her some money. They gave her gold. She was like, do you guys have money to spend? And they were like, yeah, we have money to spend. Do you want to see? And then they gave her the gold coins. They were like, you could keep this if you want to. So because she was passing, they felt like she was one of them. They did not know that she had this multiracial background from what I remember in the movie. And Haley, like they gave her currency, they gave her gold, which represents currency. It was the most valuable piece of money that they showed in the entire film. So not only does that represent like money and social status and, being able to social climb, but that also represents acceptance and validation, because she was being validated by the white community. And that's something that a lot of black people will not accept. You know how they try to tell mixed people, oh, the white side will never accept you, the white side won't like you. Okay, well, why is it that in this film they were subliminally, whether they realized it or not, they were subliminally highlighting the fact that no, mixed people can get a pass from the white community because there is still a connection there. You still have family members that are white. You still have family members that have Irish ancestry, which is what it kind of came off as in the film. I'm not sure about that. I didn't research that, but it came off as if those people maybe had like some sort of Irish ancestry just based on the music. But I noticed that some other people were like, oh, Haley Steinfeld, the mixed girl, she was the first one to turn. She was the first one to turn on the black people. That's not what happened. You did not watch the film properly. You did not analyze the film properly. No, she didn't go out there so she could turn on the black people. That's why Michael B. Jordan, she had him give her a gun. She was not the first one to turn on the black people. It was the exact opposite. She was the first one to defend the black people because she was the first one to pull a weapon out against the white people and to point the actual gun at their faces. She was the only one bold enough to do that because she wasn't scared of the white people, because she is a descendant of them. And I think that that points to a subconscious, like kind of this subconscious mindset that a lot of black people don't want to accept. Is the fact that a lot of us multiracial people, we're not scared of white people. We're not scared of people of other races because we are the descendants of those people, just like we're the descendants of black people. So Haley's character was actually the most bold. She was the first one to pull the actual weapon on the white person. And then she didn't turn because when she was walking back, the vampire started flying and then he flew and then like bit her. So it was not like she went out there and surrendered and was like, oh my God, like I surrender to the white people. I'm going to betray Michael B. Jordan and all these other people. No, that's not what happened. So I think that some people, they let their internalized biases against like white passing mixed people, they let their internalized bias against white passing mixed people demonize Haley's character. And it's like, no, that's not what happened. Haley is a human being as well. A white passing mixed person can still have a connection to their black side. So let's stop with this narrative that, oh, the more white you look, the less you're able to connect with your blackness. No, that's false. There are people that look black that connect with their white side, and there are people that look white that connect with their black side. So Haley happened to look white and she happened to connect with her black side. Get over it. There are millions of mixed people like that in the United States right now, and the mixed community is not going anywhere. So now what? But in terms of her getting bit, she got bit involuntarily. So she did not surrender to the white side. And then she came back in because she knew that, okay, so if I'm on the vampire side now, I want the guy that I want to be with, I want him to be on the vampire side with me. So that's why she came back in there. She didn't come back in there so she could make other people suffer or, I want to destroy all the black people in the juke joint and I'm racist. No, that's not why she did that. Everything is not racist, okay? Every movie is not racist. Everybody's not a colorist. I don't think that the guy who created the movie, Ryan Coogler, I don't even know who that is. I don't know if he's black, white. I don't know who wrote the movie. I don't think that those people wrote it so that they could show like, oh, everybody hates black people. I don't think that was the point of the movie. And I also don't think that those black actors would have signed up to be in the movie if it was truly a racist or colorist type of movie. But Haley, the reason she bit Michael B. Jordan's character is because she wanted him to be with her on the vampire side. That's why she did that. That's why she came in there and just seduced him. And then people are like, I thought I saw somebody like, oh, well, she was easily able to turn his character because he idolized her and put her on a pedestal. No, he actually had feelings. He had romantic feelings for her. Having romantic feelings for someone is not always based on colorism. And there was nothing in the film where Michael B. Jordan said, I like this girl because she looks white. He never said that in the film. So they just happen to be in love. So if I don't see any colorism, I'm not going to call it colorist. But once she bit him, then the guy like shot her, the other character, like the brother, he shot Haley Steinfeld's character. And then obviously she can't feel any pain because like she's a vampire. And then the other brother became a vampire with her. I can't remember if it's Smoke or Stack, but whoever Haley Steinfeld's boyfriend was, he became a vampire. So then I noticed that after that, suddenly her knowledge comes out about vampires. She's like, oh, these are actually vampires. So they don't like garlic. They don't like, you have to be stabbed with wood. And it's like, okay, where was all this knowledge and where was all this energy before? Why did it take a tragedy for you to finally wake up and step into your knowledge? I just feel like Annie's character, she never really stepped into her power. Pearlene's character never stepped into her power. Like, they were just too male-centered to focus on anything else. At least Haley wasn't as male-centered. At least she was not as male-centered as the other women, because Haley was like, look, I don't care. I want him to be a vampire, so he's going to be a vampire whether he likes it or not. That's Haley taking her power over Michael B. Jordan's character. And she used her sexual power to take control over him. So that's her decision. That was not a male-centered decision. That was a decision that she made on herself. She decided, nope, Michael B. Jordan's going to be a vampire just like me because I said so. Whereas the other women were more so like following the men or whatever, or like kind of waiting around, isolated, searching for male validation. So Haley Steinfeld's character was by far the most powerful woman in the movie. So did they mean to do that? I don't know. Did they think about how that would look? I don't know. But I think that one of the problems that the unambiguous community has is that they're constantly looking to movies to be their representation. I don't view a movie as my representation. I am my own autonomous human being. So I don't really care that much how my phenotype is represented but I think part of it could be me speaking from a place of privilege, which I will never apologize for, by the way. I'll never apologize for being born with certain privileges. But regardless, I'm not offended by the movie at all. I'm not offended by anything in it. I don't think any of it was racist or colorist. Another thing I found interesting was Annie. She was the most knowledgeable about the freaking vampires. She was the most knowledgeable. She knew about the whole wooden thing, how they didn't, you have to stab them in the heart with a wooden stake or something. And then it's like, okay, but you still got killed. So all of her knowledge that she had, all of her spiritual depth that she had, it didn't serve her in the end. So she was still powerless in the end. The only woman that was still powerful in the end was Haley's character. And then, the man that she was with was powerful. But he only became a vampire because of her. So she technically, she got what she wanted in the end, and he got what he wanted, which was to be with her. And it's like, they were the only ones that ended up living and surviving. Or they were the ones who kind of like were still there at the end of the movie. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.